Hi there, I'm Danny Flexen. Welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut FLEXpectations. I'm here every Thursday, 4:30 PM to look ahead to the boxing action of the weekend to come. And this weekend, I should say, as I film this, I'm about to leave for the press conference for this show, is the dawn of Sky Sports Boxing's new era, a phrase that's been repeated many times. I think I might have even been the first one to coin it. Adam Smith shamelessly stole it. Hopefully that's not a harbinger of things to come. But all joking aside, yeah, it was a joke. Adam Smith is very pumped up about this new start for Sky Sports, having the relationship with Matchroom and Eddie Hearn ended back in July at the end of their contract. All Matchroom UK shows will now, of course, be on Sky, be on DAZN, Freudian slip there, except for the pay-per-view events, as we saw last weekend with AJ against Usyk. And this week's show, it might not be the kind of best show ever in terms of creating an impact straight away, but there is something for everyone. So the kind of face of the new dawn, if you like, is Chris Eubank Jr. He's there in the main event slot against Anatoly Muratov. It was supposed to be Sven Elbir. I don't think anyone will be particularly devastated about the change of opponent, least of all Eubank himself. You've gone from one virtually unknown in this country to another. I would say that if anything, Muratov is probably not quite as durable as Elbir and hasn't been in with quite as good opposition. So you would expect Eubank Jr. to get the job done in the distance. But it's more about how he looks, not just in terms of Sky's new start, but also in terms of nailing down those bigger fights that he's chasing with the likes of Ryota Murata. I know that Adam Smith met Todd the Birth for lunch earlier this week, and I'm sure that would have been one of many subjects that cropped up. Future fights for Eubank Jr. against the cream of the crop over in the US. We know that a lot of fights against the best US middleweights and super middleweights for his father, Chris Eubank Sr., fell through in his prime, and probably still a regret to boxing fans of my generation now. So hopefully the same will not be true of Junior, and he can use the leverage and platform offered by Sky Sports to nail down those marquee contests. But yeah, I would expect him to get rid of Muratov at some point within the scheduled distance and then move on to a bigger fight. But yeah, so he's the face of the new venture. But it's a pretty stacked card, particularly for kind of hardcore boxing fans. That casual audience is important, and that's why you've got names like Eubank Jr. on the show. Also Richard Riakporhe, very, very talented cruiserweight, returning after over 2 years out of the ring. He's got a tick-over opponent, it's fair to say. We expect him to deal with the opposition in quick fashion and then move on and hopefully be out again before the end of the year. But for the purist or the hardcore fan, there is some stuff worth watching. David Avanesian, who we last saw beating Josh Kelly into submission, if you like, is back out defending his European title against the unsung but talented Liam Taylor. Taylor has beaten, and I know Michael Buffer likes to say this, he's beaten every man he stepped into the ring with. Sounds more like David Diamante, but never mind. Yeah, his only loss was to Tyrone Nurse, which was avenged not too long ago. Yeah, it does a bit of everything. Good all-rounder, not really fought at this level, and you would expect Avanesian to start a big favourite, but Taylor will give it everything he's got and deserves a lot of credit for stepping in, because apparently, according to Avanesian's team, a lot of domestic welterweights did not fancy the smoke from Avanesian. And you can understand why, perhaps, having seen the Kelly performance. But he does now have that European title, so there is, at least on paper, an incentive for people to get in with him. So I expect that one to be entertaining while it lasts, although I don't give Taylor too much of a chance in that one. I think style-wise, he can box a bit, and I think that could give Avanesian problems early on, but I just think he's too experienced, too strong, and just a higher level all round, as we saw in his last fight, of course. And then you've got two British title eliminators. Again, fighters that the casual fan may not have heard of, but will be making big waves as time goes on. Jermaine Brown against Jamal Ledoux at super middleweight. That should be an entertaining fight. Jermaine Brown's impressed me so far in his burgeoning pro career. Haven't seen much of Jamal Ledoux, but from what I hear, he's pretty good himself. I've heard from people that have sparred him, and he's a good fighter. So I expect that one to be a good fight to watch. And then we've got a very intriguing one at cruiserweight. We've got Mikel Lawal kind of one of London's gym's best kept secrets. Done loads and loads of rounds with some of the top cruiserweights out there, including Isaac Chamberlain, Lawrence Okoli, Chris Billam-Smith. He's also won a boxer tournament in the past as well. He's taken on Stephen Ward, the quiet man from Ireland, who we saw predominantly at light heavyweight, doing really well, and then went into the MTK Golden Contract tournament and got wiped out in a round by Richard Bolotniks, which, given Bolotniks made it all the way to the final, and won the tournament and then fought Joshua Buatsi, it doesn't look so bad in retrospect. But I think Ward realised he's got a big frame. He realised he shouldn't have been a light heavyweight for as long as he was. He's now moved up to cruiser. As a result, he's not the biggest cruiserweight around, but he is good, technically proficient, good fighter. And I think he'll come to give Lau a really, really tough fight. And that could end up being the fight of the night. I would imagine Lau can be explosive. He's physically strong. And maybe Ward, a bit more technical, but has many times been involved in a scrap. Remember that fight he had, was it Liam Conroy? I'd have to double check, but he was in a fight at light heavyweight that was just the fight of the year when it happened, just non-stop action from bell to bell. So yeah, we'll look forward to that. That's another good one. And then further down the card, you've got the debut of Ebony Jones, very talented amateur, talks well. She could be a future star in the women's division. And the return, I'll say the return, he came back in June, but on a card overseas that not many people will have seen. But the return to prominence, if you like, of touted super welterweight Joe Pigford, still unbeaten, big fan base down in Southampton, and he's usually exciting to watch as well. So make sure you tune in for his fight, if indeed it's on Sky Sports. So I haven't seen the running order yet, and I'll be speaking to a number of the undercard fighters this afternoon at Wembley at the press conference. But it should be interesting to see. And as I say, there's something for everyone on the show. Time will tell how much they resonate with the public at large. Sky on their social channels and on the different platforms on linear TV as well, or subscription TV, have certainly been pushing the new Dawn. We've all seen that advert by now. Chris Eubank Jr, I need no introduction. You've just kind of given yourself an introduction. But that's being picky. It's good that Sky are really pushing it. I know Reactpor's on there as well. And I think they've got a good mix of kind of established talent and names with the younger guys coming through. And I think instantly, well, not instantly, but within the first kind of 6 weeks through deals with Boxer and Top Rank and Wasserman, Sky Sports have ended up with a superior stable to Channel 5, Hennessy Sports, and almost challenging Frank Warren and Queensberry. Not quite yet, but they're getting there. And I think regular shows is a good way to start. Obviously, this one now, and then 2 weeks later, they go again in Newcastle with Hughie Fury and Christian Hammer in the main event. So it's good to see that regularity. And at the moment, as Adam Smith said in my interview with him earlier this week, cheap plug alert, there's no Sky Sports box office events booked for the rest of the year. That doesn't mean there won't be any, but it seems unlikely. So everything you'll watch on Sky and their stable for the next few months at least will be free as part of your Sky Sports subscription. So that's not a bad thing either. And after the sour taste left for some people from last week's show, the Campbell-Hatton decision predominantly, and even one of the judges in the main event having Joshua only 2 points behind, I didn't really like that much either. It'll be good to see a fresh wave of talent, people who haven't necessarily had the exposure on the big stage before, getting their chance and trying to grasp it with both hands, you would expect. So I'm looking forward to the show. The fact that it's part of the Sky Sports subscription as well, you know, I'll just sit on my sofa and be able to watch it without paying anything, appeals to me as the tightwad I am. But yeah, I recommend you all tune in, and then I can get your feedback next week. But for now, just let me know what you think of Sky Sports' stable, who you're most looking forward to watching on Saturday night, and predictions, not for the Eubank or Reactpor fights, please. Pretty obvious who's going to win those. But maybe for the European title fight and the 2 British eliminators, it'd be good to have your predictions for those. It'll be a test of your hardcore fan credentials. I'll be back on Monday, looking back on the card for Reflections, 4:30, and following Thursday for the next FLEXpectations at the same time. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, as always, and I'll respond to some of your comments. Cheers.